Hello there. So by now you know that the firmware we are building is going to run in a non-hosted environment. And in a nutshell, what that means is that there is no senior brother, which is the operating system, to take care of orchestration. So in this video, I'm going to help you to have a high level overview or an understanding of the code execution sequence from reset to main. Okay, so that is what happens when the microcontroller receives power, or when the reset button, again, you know that many microcontrollers have a reset button. What that button does is when you press it, it initiates a process that looks as if power was taken from the microcontroller and given right back. So it kind of restarts the entire system. Okay, so we are going to have a high level understanding of what happens when power is supplied to your microcontroller or the reset button is pressed. In this case, in the absence of an operating system that usually takes care of orchestration. Now, the manufacturers of these microcontrollers know that there are no operating systems sitting on these controllers for orchestration. And so, right from the factory, in the manufacturing process, in the hardware, a certain sequence is built in that is always followed, and this makes it very deterministic. So, when power is applied, you can see a 7-step process here. When power is applied, or at power on or reset, the core, which is your processor, reads what is known as the main stack pointer and the reset handler from what is known as a vector table in Flash. I know a lot of things are packed into this one sentence, and I'm going to explain every single thing to you. So it says the core reads main stack pointer, or the MSP. The main stack pointer, usually for ARM processors, it starts at the very end of RAM and then it grows down. You know what a stack is. When functions are called, the parameters that are passed in and the variables that are defined in the function itself, the return values of other functions that are called in the function and all that, they are dropped onto the stack. So for example, if we were to execute this code, when main is executed, and if we had some variables in here, or we pass certain things into it, they are going to be available on the stack. So remember that in a hosted environment, the operating system is actually going to create a stack for your program, and it's also going to create a heap dedicated for your program. In this case, there's no operating system. So right from the factory, these calls have been written such that the moment they receive power, they read the main stack pointer from flash memory. So it means the very first address of your flash memory. I'll make a video where we talk about the different memories. So from the very first address of your flash memory, it expects to receive a value that is the address that should be the main stack pointer. And after 8 is the address of a function known as the reset handler. And so once it reads the MSP, it transfers control to the reset handler. So what I mean is that the code in your reset handler begins execution. So that takes us to step 2 that says enter reset handler. So there is no operating system present, but there's the need for minimal runtime setup. What happens in the reset handler is mostly initialization of memory. So that is in step 3. The initialization of memory includes copying the data from flash to SRAM and then zeroing out BSS. Again, a mouthful. What we mean by copying data from flash is when you are writing your code, you allocate memory, right? You store values in variables and all that. Now, the code, the binary that makes up your firmware is sitting in your flash. But the flash is not where values are stored during the runtime of the program. And so what happens is in the reset handler, we copy these values, the variables that have been compiled to be part of the binary, the code that is actually running. it is copied from the .data section. So your binary has different sections. We copy .data from flash and then we put it in SRAM. So let's say you declare the variable a is equal to 250, blah blah blah. When you compile, it's all part of the binary that makes up the firmware, but during runtime it actually has to sit in RAM. And in most of these STM32 microcontrollers, we have the SRAM type of RAM. So it copies these there, and then it also zeroes out BSS. The BSS is basically variables that are uninitialized. You know that in Rust, every variable has a definite size and it must be known during compilation. And so even though you might not have initialized values to it, the size requirement is still there. And so it's going to reserve this amount of memory also in RAM and then zero it out for whatever instruction later in your firmware is going to set values there. Okay, so that is what the reset handler usually does. And in some very specific cases, you can also do some hardware initialization in your reset handler. And that brings us to step 4, that is early hardware preparation. So in most of the microcontrollers now, there is what is known as clock gating. You know, the clock is the heartbeat of the entire system, and every other peripheral operates usually at the speed that is dependent on the clock signal, the coarse clock signal. And to conserve energy usage, to be able to allow us in building firmware that can run on batteries for years, there is what is known as the clock gating. What happens is that not every hardware, not every peripheral on your system is receiving the signals from the clock, because the more peripherals that are getting signals from the clock, the more energy is being used. So until a peripheral is actually ready to be used, the clock signals are not supposed to go there to conserve energy. And so some of the things you do in the reset handler after having initialized memory is to enable clock signals to various peripherals. But again, it also depends on what you are building. Now, after the reset handler has finished doing all of these steps, so 1, 2, 3, they are all kind of happening in the reset handler. Okay, and the reset handler is a function that is sitting at the start of your flash memory. I am sure by now you are asking yourself, okay, so who provides the reset handler? Well, we provide it, and I'm going to show you how. The only difference is that instead of showing you how to create this reset handler from scratch, I'm going to defer that to the end of the course, because there are crates that takes care of these things. Because when you are building firmware, creating things like the reset handler and the vector table are not really a core part of your application. And so there is a crate that takes care of all of these so that you can focus on the actual offering of your operating system, of your firmware. So it transfers the control to your entry point, and the entry point is also a function you create on your own and then you mark it. This is where we come to why the no mangle thing here, as I said in the previous video, is very important, because in the linker script we specify that our entry point is called main and it should not be changed at all. Okay, and so when the reset handler is done, it transfers control to whatever function we have designated or marked as our main function in the linker. And the runtime crate I told you about has a macro that is going to help us to be able to do that. We'll see that very soon. And so when the control gets into your entry point, at this point it is the user code that has taken control, and it is doing whatever the core logic of your firmware is. But remember that in most embedded systems, we usually have an infinite loop. We usually have an infinite loop in the main function or the entry that is continuously doing the same thing over and over. Now the question is, how does it react to interrupt? And you know, an interrupt is anything that is outside the normal flow of the entry function or the main function, but it also demands the attention of the operating system. For example, there are external interrupts like when a GPIO senses a high voltage or it senses a low voltage, or when a timer has finished counting, or when some particular period has elapsed, or when data is available on a peripheral like the UART or the SPI or I2C. All of these can raise interrupts, right? So the user code takes control of that. And then there is the exception and interrupt handling part, where when there is any interrupt happening or an exception, and an interrupt is actually a kind of exception. We distinguish between them and we'll see the difference actually. But when an interrupt or an exception happens, the attention of the processor is drawn to the fact that, okay, something just came up that is out of the ordinary and it needs an immediate attention. And what happens is that the processor or the core is going to find the appropriate interrupt handler. How does it find this? This is part of the vector table. So the vector table is nothing more than a collection of addresses or functions. That is all. And there is a function or a handler for every exception or interrupt that could ever happen on your microcontroller. The crate that I will introduce you to in subsequent video is going to help you set up the vector table so you don't have to worry about it. But maybe at the end of the course in the appendix, I'll show you how to actually create all of these from scratch for those who are interested in knowing how to do that. But at the moment, I just feel that it's not really necessary and it gets in the way of learning for the moment. But I'm still going to show you how to do everything from scratch without depending on the crate. Okay, so the core senses that, okay, whilst it is still executing your main loop, it senses that an interrupt happens. What it does is it saves the context on a stack. The context is literally the content of some registers. It's going to move them to the stack, and then it will go to run the appropriate interrupt handler. An interrupt handler is nothing more than a function that is executed in response to an interrupt or an exception, right? And then once it is done running the interrupt handler, it restores the context and it resumes from your entry point. And one thing you want to note is in your interrupt handler functions, you don't want to execute long running code, because that is the purpose of interrupt. Something happens immediately, we attend to it, and then we come back to the main loop. I know, again, this is a mouthful, a lot of new concepts. If you are not really used to these already, watch this video as many times as possible, and then after you have understood, you can move on to the next video. So I'll be waiting for you in the next video, and once again, thank you for watching.